very habitable man.
The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
We really are working our way into uncharted territory. For the first time, we have a tropical system moving towards the mouth of the Mississippi River. Meanwhile, the Mississippi River is swollen with floodwaters. This is the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. Unchanged in terms of the strength of the winds, 50 miles per hour. Starting to notice some convection just south of the center of the circulation. This is the latest warnings. That shading of red, including Morgan City and the southern coastline of Louisiana, that's a hurricane warning. The shading of blue, including Baton Rouge, Lake Pontchartrain, as well as New Orleans, that is a tropical storm warning, and that is valid through the course of the weekend. Even though the forecast path doesn't explicitly show a hurricane strength storm making landfall, we do believe that that's still a distinct possibility. That time frame, late Friday night into early Saturday morning. But let's not get lost in the minutia here. This is a rainmaker, a flood threat. That's why the Weather Prediction Center has a high risk of flash flooding from Baton Rouge right through New Orleans, all the way to the southern coastline of Louisiana. Look at that, 10 to 15 inches, perhaps locally higher amounts. You add on the potential of 4 feet of storm surge, and you've got your recipe for disaster.
Oh, Jay, New Orleans, you got to get your timing right. You really do. You know what your problem is? You always do this when you have a terrible Republican president in the office. You know, are you going to sit there and take it? Are you going to get destroyed under every Republican presidency? And how do Republicans continue to win Louisiana when there's less and less and less of it every time there's a Republican in the office? I mean, okay, this is so unbelievable. I mean, New Orleans, they're being hit from a swollen Mississippi River from the north, heavy rains from above, and tropical storms approaching from the Gulf. You've been through all this before, but not at the same time. So this is like Katrina meets Harvey. This is what they call a rainmaker. And this is a bad time for you to flood because too bad about that infrastructure week. Too bad about that. You know, all the drains and all the pumps and all the levees around the city are going to be tested. Not that your president that you love there, Louisiana, that you love there ever got around to infrastructure week, but I'm really sure that the rebuilt sections of the Mexico wall fence will come in handy for you. There's so much going on, and I can't even tell you that the most important thing, the most immediate thing, are the raids that are coming to 10 cities, and the raid that is coming to New Orleans, through the weather. The entire state of Louisiana is at risk. It's already pretty much 50th in the country for everything you'd want to be 50th in. And now infrastructure too. So good luck to you. And then for the other 9 cities, you're going to have these raids all over the place. New Orleans got spared the raids. Remember there were 10 cities that were going to be part of the raids? Yeah, so ICE confirmed that the immigration enforcement will be temporarily suspended through the weekend to allow, for the unwanteds to drown. And the storm is named Barry. Why didn't they just name it Barack and get it over with? I mean, honestly, why not? But yeah, I mean, so you're going to have these raids this weekend, and obviously, you remember when I gave all the legal advice out to people who were being fear-mongered, were being terrified. The last time he said he was going to have the raids prior to the July 4th weekend, we had racists call us up and go, "What's wrong with you? Why are you helping them? Why are you helping?" Because they're human beings. That's why I'm helping them. And because they have families and maybe some of their kids are American citizens, and we really don't need to break up any more families in this country that have already been broken up by fighting over money. Do you know what I mean? So, So the mayors of these 9 cities now, because New Orleans has been spared, pending who survives the Great Flood. So they're all telling their people in their cities not to open the door, to make sure just everything that we were explaining that is legally right, that is legally available to anyone who is raided or terrorized by this, deportation force, that they have rights to. There is something called due process. There's something called a warrant signed off on by a judge. That these are all legal protections that are currently in place for human beings who live on our land, because even if you are here without a piece of paper, you are entitled to the full protection of the ultimate piece of paper, the Constitution. Oh, yes, it applies to citizens and non-citizens alike. It applies to people, actually people. So you have, the mayor of Chicago saying that the police department there, Mayor Lightfoot, is saying that the Chicago Police Department shall not cooperate with the ICE raids. The Miami mayor, Mayor Suarez, who's, a Republican. He's a Republican mayor. He said that the city of Miami is not coming after you. He said, there are obviously those who are violent criminals, because he's a Republican. He had to throw that in there. But, Miami is 70% minority already. So it's a majority minority city. It is a true melting pot of various languages and cultures. I mean, in Miami, people speak Portuguese, they speak Creole, they speak, Caribbean Spanish, they speak Central American Spanish. There's and English. Mostly everybody speaks English. But he said, frankly, we're in the dark. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. He said, nobody's talked to us. Nobody's, told us anything. And he also said, frankly, I don't know how whatever the crisis is on the southern border relates to the city of Miami. He doesn't know. De Blasio in New York, of course, he said this is a policy of fear and division and more proof that we need to abolish ICE. Yes. Our city is stronger, safer, and more prosperous than ever because of our immigrant communities. We will do everything, in caps, that we can to protect them. He also shared the information that I, got for our listeners ahead of the last threat of a raid. So he says, if you or your loved one are approached by federal immigration enforcement in your home, on the street, or in public, remember you have rights and your city will fight for them. The Trump administration's overbroad enforcement serves only to tear immigrant families apart, create an environment of fear, and divide us as a nation. That is not how we operate in New York City, and we will always stand proudly alongside our immigrant brothers and sisters. Houston, of all places, in Texas, Sylvester Turner, who's the mayor of Houston, he told NPR yesterday, quote, families are concerned and it has enhanced the anxiety level of people within my city. It impacts adversely public safety because we rely on immigrants and others to report when crimes are being committed in their neighborhoods, and people will now shy away from contacting public services or the police. Houston Police Department is not ICE. He wants people in Houston to know we are not going to be participating with ICE on these types of raids. He said we are advising people that they do have due process rights. They do not have to answer the door. They don't have to let anybody into their homes. He said if we are talking about deporting people who have been here for quite some time and their only crime is coming here to seek a better way of living or provide a better opportunity to their families, that is a situation that Houston will not participate in. The city of Houston is a welcoming city. I don't think this does anything to deter people from coming here, and it definitely does not enhance public safety. Same thing for Michael Hancock, the mayor of Denver, said the same thing. San Francisco Mayor London Breed said the same thing, that San Francisco is always and has been a sanctuary city. And in Atlanta, Mayor Bottoms is just livid. She is just livid.
all things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Is your understanding that the ICE raids expected to start this weekend are targeting violent people who are in this country illegally, or that they're targeting families and others who have been ordered to leave the country and have not honored those orders?
Frankly, Jake, we don't know because the federal government hasn't communicated with our government. They haven't told us what their parameters are. They haven't asked us to support what they're doing or given us any information on who they're targeting, how they're targeting them. So frankly, we're in the dark. I don't know how whatever the crisis is in the southern border relates to the city of Miami. In the city of Miami, the immigration issues really relate more to countries like Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Haiti, many of which are seeking extensions of TPS status, having fled those countries.
Well, let me ask you a question with all due respect. If the federal government hasn't communicated with you who they're targeting this weekend, how can you tell people in Miami that they have nothing to worry about unless they're violent criminals? Because it sounds like, I mean, what we are hearing is that who's going to be targeted might be families, people who are not in the country legally, but they've been told they need to leave, but are not necessarily violent criminals, not necessarily causing any harm to the communities. But if you're not sure, why should people not worry?
Well, at first, they have nothing to worry from the city of Miami. Certainly,
from the city of Miami, okay.
We're not participating in any raids. We haven't been asked to participate in any raids. And certainly we are obviously a pro-immigrant city.
Right, but shouldn't they worry about ICE is what I'm saying. Might they not worry about ICE agents?
I think certainly people who live in fear, and we're a city where we do have a high immigrant population, so they may be afraid of what would be happening this Sunday. Last time that there was going to be supposed raids that were canceled at the last minute, and frankly, the federal government hasn't given us any information, so we don't know how to inform anyone of what's going to happen. So those who are in fear, I can understand their fear. I can understand why they would be afraid, but frankly, we don't have any information, to allay their fears. Or to my as mayor, what I hope is that the people that they're focused on are people that are very dangerous, because those people obviously shouldn't be in our community to begin with.
Oh, for Pete's sake. So that's Mayor Suarez of Miami. And he has no idea. No one has any idea. The mayor of Atlanta, her name is Mayor Bottoms. She's got two kids. One is 8 years old, I believe. I think I got that right. And the other is 5. And or the older one, I think, is 11. Okay. And the younger one asked her if he was born in the United States. Yeah. And she said, yes, why? And because I'm afraid that they're going to take me away from you. And then he asked if his older 11-year-old brother was also born in the United States. And she had to console her children and tell her children there is no chance that ICE is going to take them away from her this weekend. I mean, this is the fear that this president plays with in all of our children, let alone the children that are being sexually assaulted in Yuma, Arizona, or the babies that are dying in our custody, or the 30-year-old that mysteriously just died and they'll get back. I mean, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of people who have died in our custody. And the previous 10 years, when we had President Obama, who also deported a large amount of people, they used to call him the deporter in chief. No one died. No one died. And Donald Trump literally says, you're better off dead. That's what he says. He says they're better off now than they were in, Salvador or Guatemala or Nicaragua. I mean, it's just so sick. This is so twisted. And now we're going to have, just a little bit of advice. If you are here under TPS status, or if you are here and you don't have proper documents or whatever, and you can't prove your citizenship this weekend, do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, stay inside. You should stay inside. If you can stay inside, they can't get to you. What do I mean by that? Well, they can't knock down your door, because the thing that you're so guilty of is a civil offense, number one. And so the feds can't knock down your door for a non-criminal offense, okay? So you're best off staying inside and don't open the door. The other thing is, if you are presented with a detainer or some sort of a warrant from ICE, that is not good enough. You must see a warrant signed off on by a judge. And if that is not what they present you with, they might present you with something that looks sort of good, but if you don't see that it's a warrant signed off on by a judge, then it does not apply to you. So you just simply say, am I free to go? Offer no information, produce no documents, do not, just stay silent. If they try to search you, simply say, I do not consent to a search. I do not consent to a search. There are many, many things that protect you as being somebody who is a human being in our country. There is a due process clause in our Constitution that protects you. Now, as you know, there are many pro bono lawyers out there that are volunteering their time, and they are going to try very, very hard to file motions asking for some of these mass trials that they had. They're going to try very hard to reopen a lot of the cases for the people who are being targeted so that their cases will now be pending. And in the case of a pending case, you cannot be removed. So there's lots of things that are going on, but this is toxic, man. Everything this man does is all fear-based. It's all he knows. He just knows how to make people afraid of everyone else. He knows how to make people afraid of the feds. He knows how to make neighbors afraid of their neighbors. This is all he knows. He doesn't know the law. He doesn't know anything about being a human being. He doesn't know anything about the Constitution. He doesn't know anything about courts. He knows nothing. In fact, this stupid thing on the census, okay, this worries me. I think the media is getting a lot of this stuff wrong on the census. But put it this way, in a nutshell, he's getting so many bad court decisions that some of these cases he's actually losing twice. So much winning, everybody. So much winning that he's losing these cases twice now. So he hands out this executive order, and I got to say, the only journalists that have expressed any concern about this executive order, besides for me, are the journalists over at Mother Jones. They also see that this might be a problem to have everyone's information in one place where it could be hacked or where the president could, finger somebody he doesn't like, retaliate against somebody he doesn't like, point a finger, all this. They're the only people that expressed any sort of concern. But I did hear some lawyers say that the executive order, after they reviewed it, said that federal privacy laws would be maintained, but there are lawyers in this country who are going to monitor this sharing of data across the IRS, across the Social Security agency administration, across Health and Human Services. They're going to monitor and make sure that your privacy is protected. But in this digital world, listen, this freaks me out.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844.
An ICE deportation warrant is not the same as a search warrant. If that is the only document ICE brings to a home raid, agents do not have the legal right to enter a home. If ICE agents don't have a warrant signed by a judge, a person may refuse to open the door and let them in.
So that's interesting. I wonder if, because they are targeting 2,000 migrants in the country illegally, been fully litigated, I wonder if they will get search warrants, not just ICE warrants, detainer warrants.
Well,
but
that's
I
what
wonder if they will get.
AOC was saying. Check your neighbors, know your rights. They can't enter without a judicial warrant. And Hillary Clinton, in Spanish, she tweeted this out. We can put up the tweet right there. It says basically, take photos. It says toma fotos y videos. And you're our Spanish speaker.
Yeah. So if you look here, it says no abras la puerta, don't open the door. Guarda silencia, don't talk. No firmes, don't speak. Report.
No firmes means don't sign, idiot. This is their Spanish speaker over at Fox. They have one. Just like Trump had one cabinet member who was Hispanic, okay? One member of the cabinet that was Hispanic. And this morning it was announced. I got to tell you, what's his name? Judge Napolitano, Judge Napolitano from the Fox News, one vowel movement away from what it does to the news. He actually predicted that Alex Acosta would not make it to Friday. Actually, he was actually correct. He did not make it to Friday. Did we not put that in there? 27. Thank you. Here.
Well, I'm sure you saw the Secretary of Labor, Acosta, give that press conference yesterday trying to explain what happened when he was...
Key phrase, trying to.
Right, exactly. So what do you think happens in this case?
I watched the press conference, obviously, and then I read the transcript of it. When you read it, it sounds lawyerly and elegant, but it was not persuasive.
No.
I don't think he persuaded anybody that he did the right thing.
No.
He had a tremendous amount of evidence against Mr. Epstein, and he should have indicted him and then negotiated with his lawyers rather than holding that indictment, that 53-page indictment that they drafted, which outlined names, dates, places, faces. They held it in a drawer and it never saw the light of day.
We're out of time. Your prediction, does he go or stay?
Who?
Acosta.
I don't think he'll be around by Friday.
We shall see.
Well, tomorrow's Friday.
Yes.
So that was yesterday, and then this morning.
We have just learned here at CNN that Labor Secretary Alexandra Acosta has resigned.
Bye-bye.
This is huge. This is someone who was confirmed by the Senate in 2017.
Good going, Mitch McConnell.
You had 8 Democrats voting for him.
Oh, God.
But this is because of the fallout from his handling a decade ago of the plea deal, the sweetheart plea deal that was given to the sexual predator, Jeffrey Epstein, who we now know has more federal charges against him for essentially running a sex ring involving underage minor girls. Again, if you're just joining us, the breaking news this morning, the Labor Secretary, Alexandra Acosta, is resigning. This is after, remember, that defiant press conference
that he had, which convinced absolutely no one that he did the right thing. No one, including Bill Barr, who told the president of the United States, because the president of the United States doesn't know anything about anything, okay? He knows nothing. He knows Jeffrey Epstein. They palled around together. He pals around with pedophiles. I mean, just everybody around him, truly. Roy Moore, who he endorsed. Pedophile. The guy who headed up his Trump's Oklahoma campaign, his name is Shorty, believe it or not, pedophile. The guy in Louisiana, pedophile. I mean, all pedophiles. Kavanaugh, rapist. Donald Trump, rapist. I mean, it's just so sick, right? It's so sick. But Trump decided that he would drag Acosta out in front of the TV cameras to say it was his idea to resign. That Acosta called him and said, I don't want to be a distraction to you, sir, because you're such a great man and you have so much to do. You're so important. I don't want to be a distraction and blah, blah, blah. And in doing it, he bumbles this too. He goes, Alex Acosta, he's a Hispanic man. Wait. What? That's the first thing he thinks of when he says Alex Acosta's name, Hispanic man. That gives me the ability to do raids now because I brought in a Hispanic man.
I think he was a great labor secretary, not a good labor secretary. He's done a fantastic job. He's a friend of everybody in the administration, and I got a call this morning early from Alex. And I think he did a very good job yesterday. Under a lot of pressure, he did a fantastic job. And he explained it. He made a deal that people were happy with, and then 12 years later, they're not happy with it. You'll have to figure all of that out. But the fact is, he has been a fantastic Secretary of Labor. And Alex called me this morning and he wanted to see me. And I actually said, well, we have the press right out here, so perhaps you just want to say it to the press. But I just want to let you know, this was him, not me, because I'm with him. He's a tremendous talent. He's a Hispanic man. He went to Harvard, a great student. And in so many ways, I just hate what he's saying now because we're going to miss him.
I'm with him. He's a Hispanic man, and I'm with him. And everybody was happy with the deal, and now they're not happy with the deal. No one that was assaulted, no one that was lured into his freaking sex cult, Epstein was happy with the deal. None of these girls were happy with the deal. In fact, when the Miami Herald went looking for these girls, 60 of them came forward. And you know what happened? The latest that Julie K. Brown just wrote in the Miami Herald today, there are at least a dozen new victims who have come forward to claim that they were sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein because they heard the FBI's press conference where they stood up there and they said, SDNY stood up there and said that if there are any more victims, you come first, you call us, you let us know. So it looks like some Palm Beach attorneys, Scarola, people here know the TV commercials for Scarola, Barnhart, and Shipley. So Jack Scarola said that at least 5 women, all of whom were minors at the time of their alleged encounters, reached out to him. The other Fort Lauderdale lawyer who has been representing a whole bunch of these girls for a really long time, Brad Edwards, also said that he was contacted, and the people that we are speaking to are underage victims in Florida and in New York. These are not individuals whose claims have been previously part of any investigation, law enforcement investigation. Julie K. Brown said at least a dozen new victims have come forward. All this happening while Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer is saying he has a spotless record since the prosecutors, put him in the private wing of the Palm Beach County Jail, and they should let him out on bail. I'm sorry, but didn't I hear the FBI say that when they raided his New York, mansion, that they found a trove of underage girls photographed partially nude, some totally nude? How is that spotless? They found volumes, they said. That's the quote. Volumes of photographs of nude and partially nude girls. Last weekend. Spotless.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
And as I look forward, I do not think it is right and fair for this administration's Labor Department to have Epstein as the focus rather than the incredible economy that we have today. And so I called the president this morning. I told him that I thought the right thing was to step aside. Cabinet positions are temporary trusts. It would be selfish for me to stay in this position and continue talking about a case that's 12 years old rather than about the amazing economy we have right now. And so I submitted my resignation to the president effective 7 days from today, effective 1 week from today, earlier this morning.
Everyone is gone. I mean, there's 15, just so you know, there's 15 cabinet positions, okay, 15 of them. 13 of them have already left. 13 of them have already left because, he only hires the best people. I mean, this is just so unbelievable. So now we have an acting Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper. We're going to have an acting Labor Secretary. It's a guy named Patrick Pizzella. We have an acting Homeland Security Director. We have an acting White House Chief of Staff. We have an acting ambassador to the UN. We have an acting OMB director. We have an acting Small Business Administration chair. And then, there's other notable, agencies like OSHA and FAA and FDA and EEOC and CBP, Border Patrol. and USIS, who's in charge of Border Patrol, and ICE, who's underneath USIS also, and FEMA, which is going to be called upon, obviously, for New Orleans. All of those, FAA, FEMA, ICE, USIS, CBP, EEOC, CPSC, FDA, and OSHA, Workplace Safety, they're all acting. There's not one Senate confirmed person in any of those positions that I just told you. No, this is unbelievable. And think about why Alex Acosta is going. Alex Acosta is going because if he leaves, maybe you'll forget about him. And he made that decision with the president, said, you know what, I'll be over here if you need me. And what does he do while he is the labor secretary in charge of human trafficking? He defunds the main department that does human trafficking convictions, that does human trafficking cases. He takes $50 million out of their budget. He takes the budget from $68 million down to $18 million for the department that actually tracks and builds cases of human traffickers in this here country. I mean, it's just no wonder they love him. I mean, but then the Epstein thing, because of one scrappy journalist at the Miami Herald, Julie K. Brown, who was interested in human trafficking stories, kept coming across the name Jeffrey Epstein. Kept seeing his name all the time, and finally broke open this story in a 3-part series for the Miami Herald. She was dogged. She was thorough. She saw names of people that were just high-profile people. And the most important thing, this SDNY case is being brought by the division that handles public corruption. So when you look at which unit of SDNY is bringing this case against Jeffrey Epstein, you realize it's the Public Corruptions Unit. You got to know that there are public figures that are about to be indicted as well, and that Jeffrey Epstein is simply a placeholder for all of the co-conspirators. And the only reason why this is possible is because Acosta, at his press conference, had to admit that a federal court judge ruled that the plea agreement that he gave Epstein, that he signed off on as U.S. Attorney in Miami, appointed by W to handle this, was illegal. And it doesn't apply. It's illegal. And so now we're waiting to see what happens to Acosta for entering into an illegal plea deal as a U.S. Attorney in southern Florida, in South Florida. This is crazy. I mean, Flynn is Manafort's in jail. Cohen is in jail. Epstein is in jail. And the rest of, you got all these other people, that should be in jail. I mean, Rob Porter, he left for beating his wives. What the hell kind of a rogues gallery of sick, twisted men are these? And the evangelicals, they can't vote fast enough for him. And Donald Trump, I thought he did a fantastic job. He made a deal people were happy with. Now they're not. What people were happy with it? Epstein, Giselle Maxwell, Alan Dershowitz, they were happy with it. Jay Lefkowitz, all from Kirkland and Ellis. Ken Starr, Kirkland and Ellis. They were happy with it. The victims were not happy with it. But they do say, in reporting this today, CNN does, that privately Trump was stewing over Acosta's fate. There would be continued disclosures, and there would be questions about the trial and during the testimony. Remember, there's now going to be a trial. And somebody who spoke to CNN this morning under the, I want to remain anonymous to protect my job, they said that the grumblings over Acosta and the lack of enthusiasm that Trump had, he said the official was told to tell Acosta, quote, "Your well of support is not going to be deep if you're not going to support the president's agenda." And the president's agenda was a deregulatory agenda. And that's why we have acting people in OSHA. That's why we have acting people at EEOC, the Equal Opportunity, right? We have all these acting people who all they do is deregulate their own agencies. All they do is deprive their own agencies of funds. When have you ever seen somebody in charge of a department in your particular workplace that advocated for less funds for their department? It doesn't happen. So this is just so sick. It's so sick. And so then this morning they asked him, well, what happened? The press asked Donald Trump, what really happened between you and Jeffrey Epstein? And he won't say. He won't say. But of course, what happened was Jeffrey Epstein went to the county jail, probably had his eyes on Ivanka, too. You know he did. I mean, she was young, she's beautiful, and they had a falling out, but he won't say what it was. They won't say.
Yes, and I did have a falling out a long time ago. The reason doesn't make any difference, frankly, but I haven't spoken to him in probably 15 years or more. I wasn't a big fan of Jeffrey Epstein, that I can tell you. And now if you look, the remnants hurt this man, and I hate to see it happen.
The remnants, meaning the victims who are now getting their day in court, the victims who have sworn out affidavits, the victims who sued the people involved in this sex ring, sued them. They didn't have the protection of the federal government. The FBI literally investigated this. The federal government did. And they gave Alex Acosta a 53-page indictment with witness testimony, physical evidence, all kinds. And just know that the Palm Beach Police Department had done, and this was local stuff. This is how this case unfolded. The local Palm Beach police chief did an 11-month investigation into Jeffrey Epstein back in the day when these girls first started to tell the story. And he did 11 months worth of investigation and found tons of girls and tons of physical evidence. He literally went through Jeffrey Epstein's garbage first and then got a court-ordered search warrant of Jeffrey Epstein's palatial mansion on Brio Way in Palm Beach and discovered that they were telling the truth. And so he presented that case to the state attorney, Barry Krischer. And Barry Krischer decided, you know what I'll do? I'll go the route of a grand jury. It's secret. No one will know. I'll call one girl. He called one girl. And so the grand jury returned one indictment on a misdemeanor charge of prostitution, because that's what the prosecutor, Barry Krischer, gave to the grand jury to consider. And the police chief in Palm Beach was livid. So he called the FBI. That's how the feds got involved. The local police chief called the FBI when he saw this was inside baseball. People were going to cover for Jeffrey Epstein. It made him furious because it was children. So the FBI starts its investigation, hands the feds, Acosta, the U.S. attorney in Miami, 53 pages of an indictment against Jeffrey Epstein with like 30 girls' testimony, physical evidence, photographic evidence. Obviously, this Virginia Roberts, she had photographs of herself with Prince Andrew. She had photographs of herself with Jeffrey. She had photographs of herself with Giselle. She had so much photographic evidence of herself when she was only 16 years old. And Acosta decides to enter into a plea deal. He doesn't file the case and then enter into a plea deal, which makes nothing but sense. Oh no, he enters into one before he files the case? How stinky is that? How obvious is that? And Trump stands there as well. The remnants are unhappy with this man. The remnants are the girls. They're the victims.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Dershowitz is a longtime friend of Epstein's who represented him in the criminal underage sex case.
Could you please? I never saw a young underage woman.
Yet Epstein's former butler swore under oath that Dershowitz was at Epstein's residences at the same time underage girls were there.
Were there young women in another part of the house giving massages when I wasn't around? I have no idea of that.
Dershowitz did say he once received a massage at Epstein's mansion, but from an adult woman.
I kept my underwear on during the massage. I don't like massages particularly.
Then why did you have one? I mean, listen, here's where we are in America. We have a president who has so many sleazy friends. Can I just remind you that Acosta became our labor secretary because Pudzer was rejected because he had some sort of a wife beating thing in his. This is so Porter also beat his 2 wives. Who's the other wife beater? There's another one. No, I just said Rob Porter. Rob Porter beat his 2 wives. There's another wife beater in the mix, okay? Who was supposed to be our Secretary of Defense, and his son baseball batted his mother and bashed her brains in. I just, who are these people? Who are these people? Well, I got to tell you, Alan Dershowitz is so freaked out now that he was on Fox News defending Donald Trump, endlessly through the Russia investigation thing. And now he's on TV defending himself, and any story that forces me to visualize 80-year-old Alan Dershowitz in his panties is too much for me. But he went on, I got to tell you, this Lala Ingraham, she has absolutely not a shred of integrity. She knows the story as well as I do. Everybody that reads the newspaper knows the story as well as I do. Maybe I know it a little bit better because I live here. But I didn't live here, in 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I lived in New York, as you know. But this is just so sickening because all of these clips of Alan Dershowitz from local News 10 are available to anybody that wants to see them. Well, he decided he would go on Lala Ingraham's show last night because he knows she won't ask any tough questions about anything he did or didn't do. And she's supposed to be a lawyer, okay? She's supposed to be like, what, did she go to an Ivy League school or something like this there, She's supposed to be a big lawyer. This was so disgusting. She just basically sat there while he lied to her. She said, well, why don't you just go to court? Because, this Virginia Roberts girl is suing Alan Dershowitz for defamation. Now, that's very knowable. There is nothing hard about finding that out. And so instead of saying, what are you going to do now that Virginia Roberts is suing you? She says, why don't you go to court? Now, remember, he said he didn't want to sit for a deposition in her lawsuit unless she went first. So Lala is, pretending she doesn't know anything about this case, right? But he still manages to call everybody a liar, and he still manages to screw this whole thing up.
Why not fight this out in court in an effort to clear your name?
Well, I am going to. I have to do 2 things. One, defend the First Amendment right of every American to respond to false charges. And second, if the case does go to court, to show that she is a liar. Let me repeat categorically. She made up the whole story. I never met this woman. It was part of an extortion plot to obtain $1 billion from Leslie Wexner, a businessman, the man who owns Victoria's Secret.
Okay, there's another company we now have to shun, okay? Virginia Roberts, Virginia Roberts never filed against Mr. Wexner. Never. Only Dershowitz. She did file against him. She filed against him, and she filed against Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation, for calling her a liar. And he's still doing it.
My own lawyer admitted to me on tape that it would be impossible for me to have been in the various locations at those times, and that his client is, quote, wrong, simply wrong. I commissioned an investigation from the former head of the FBI, who concluded that she was wrong. Her own lawyers withdrew the charges, saying it was a mistake to do so. This same woman who accused me accused Bill Clinton and Al Gore and Tipper Gore of being on Jeffrey Epstein's island, and the reports of the Secret Service.
Bill Clinton did go to the island, right? Yeah, Alan, Bill Clinton.
He was never on the.
But he never went on the. He was never there ever.
No, he was never there. He issued a statement the other day saying he was never on the island, and Secret Service records confirmed that he was never on the island.
There was discrepancies, though, Alan. Wait. There was discrepancies on other matters with Bill Clinton. He said he was only on 2 flights, turns out, or 4. It turns out there were 6. I mean, he said Secret Service was always with him. It turns out they weren't always with him when he was on Epstein's plane. I wouldn't throw yourself in with Bill Clinton on this.
What the hell was that? He says he has tapes of her lawyer. Now, you know who her lawyer is. And her lawyer is representing her, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who ran away to Australia to get away from Epstein when she was 19 years old. Okay? Her lawyer, who's representing her free, pro bono, is David Boies. David Boies represented Al Gore in Bush v. Gore in 2000. David Boies also represented Harvey Weinstein, and he also represented a company that bilked some investors out of, startup money because the woman that owned the company was claiming that a product she had did something it did not do. But it has... I got to tell you that there's another article in the Miami Herald. Thank God for Julie K. Brown, who just refuses to put her pencil down. It's unbelievable. They talked about how Alan Dershowitz keeps filing bar complaints saying that David Boies is unethical, which he also said on Laura's show last night. Let me just play you the rest of this, and then I'll catch you up on what actually is known.
Does she have that same lawyer that you said you have on tape? Is he still representing her?
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's David Boies, who has, and his law firm, have one of the worst ethical records in the history of the United States. They have more ethical charges against them than any other
it's a big
major law firm.
Yeah, it's a big law firm.
It's a big law firm, but he's the head. He's the head of the law firm. He was charged with unethical conduct by the New York Times. In the Weinstein case, he was charged with questionable conduct. In the Theranos case, he has absolutely no credibility. But in this case, he knows that his client made up the whole story, and he told me that, and I have it on tape. All I did was repeat, basically on tape, what he had told me.
That's devastating.
Namely that she was wrong, simply wrong. It's devastating.
Right,
I do have it. And it'll be
as a former defense attorney, if you have that on tape, that's bad. All right.
Okay. On Wednesday, a partner of David Boies, Josh Schiller, because it's Boies Schiller, he's the son of the founding partner, Jonathan Schiller. He filed papers in federal court in the Southern District of New York opposing the motion to dismiss this firm from representing Virginia Roberts Giuffre. The filing includes affidavits by five lawyers who say that Alan Dershowitz either lied or distorted communications that he had with David Boies or with this law firm involving the Giuffre case. They said that there are no tapes. He has no tapes of David Boies saying he knows Virginia Roberts is lying, that he presented some tapes to a court, and that the court decided that those tapes were edited, they were doctored, and that they were not the real and true tapes of any conversations. Alan Dershowitz also filed 4 bar complaints in 3 different states. All of them have been dismissed. All of them were to disqualify David Boies from being the lawyer for Virginia Roberts. Looks like Dershowitz may have met his match.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
This is a perfect example of why lawyers counsel their clients not to talk about pending cases.
Journalist Vicky Ward made this comment about told Acosta would make you told Acosta you would make mincemeat out of the women. Let's listen.
The light that the Miami Herald shed on the victims' stories that were incredibly poignant and incredibly credible. Remember, back in 2008, Alan Dershowitz told Alexandra Acosta, and told journalists he was going to make mincemeat of these women.
What does that mean?
There's no truth to that at all. We have no truth. I met with Acosta only once with a group of lawyers. There were probably 15 lawyers and FBI agents. They have notes, I'm sure it would confirm. I never said anything like that. What we did say was that there was no credible evidence that Epstein at that time had transported any underage woman in interstate commerce, and that was required. By the way, Virginia Roberts was not underage. Her own lawyer and she have all admitted now that she didn't start working for Epstein until she was 17 years old, and that she doesn't even claim that she had sex with the numerous people. She claims she had sex with former American congressmen until she was well over age. So she's lied just about everything. And of course, it's the job of the defense attorney to make sure that the evidence is based on credible evidence.
I can't believe I don't know the answer to this question, but I don't. Do you still represent you know, him, and when did you stop representing him, Epstein?
No, I stopped representing him when the deal was made, and I haven't seen him in years. And, you know, if his lawyers call me and ask me a question about the deal, of course, as a lawyer, I have to answer that question. Look.
This man keeps filing complaints against the lawyers that are representing this Virginia Roberts, who apparently has the goods. And, you know, there's a second girl also who said she was forced to have sex with Alan Dershowitz. Just saying. But the lawyers in this case, on the side of the Dershowitzes, they intimidated these girls so badly back in the day. CNN has a report today that says that not long after a 14-year-old, by the way, Virginia Roberts, the evidence is, in this case, sworn affidavits, testimony, etc. The FBI's investigation, the 11-month investigation that the Palm Beach police did on their own, ahead of all this unfolding at the federal level, all clearly, you know, show that Virginia Roberts was 16. She was working as a towel girl at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, that Mar-a-Lago. And that's when she was recruited to work for Epstein. She was 16 years old. So I don't know why he thinks, you know, a 17-year-old is of age. I don't know where, you know, he's a professor emeritus at Harvard. Let me not, marginalize his expert testimony on Fox News. Oh, my God. But there was a 14-year-old girl, and her parents got involved. Okay, most of these girls, their parents were absentee. Their parents were either drug addicted, or their parents, the father had left, or the mother had left, or whatever. They had no one to stand up for them. But there was this one girl who actually had an active parent that went to the police about all this. And the story that they told the police is that the girl would be paid cash if she agreed not to cooperate with law enforcement. Quote, this private investigator hired by the lawyers said those who help Epstein will be compensated and those who hurt him will be dealt with. That was according to a Palm Beach, Florida police report. This was during the original Palm Beach police local investigation that lasted for 11 months. And now it goes on to say that the threat was only one of many intimidation and bare-knuckle tactics that the accusers and witnesses told police they faced after Florida authorities opened their first investigation into Epstein. During that probe, at least 3 private investigators who police believed were working for Epstein tracked down these young girls, the accusers, and the witnesses also, like the parents of this one girl who reported it. They tracked down these witnesses and the girls, according to the police reports. They sat in black SUVs outside the homes of these accusers, questioned their former boyfriends, chased one parent's car off the road. This is according to police reports. And also according to a lawyer for 3 of the girls. The current attorney for Jeffrey Epstein, Reed Weingarten, denied this in a court filing. He said he had no knowledge of the alleged car chase, but said if it happened, it was not authorized by Epstein. Spencer Coven, who was the attorney for these 3 original accusers, said it was incredibly intimidating. You have to remember, these girls were 14 and 15 years old when this was happening. And it still didn't stop them. It still didn't stop their the parents, and it still didn't stop these girls, according to court filings, police reports, attorneys, but it also extended to the prosecutors. Oh, yeah. Alex Acosta's office. Those prosecutors that he said, oh, they were all down with this plan. Everybody was fine with the plea deal, right? Well, according to this, and this is CNN's reporting today, prosecutors with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, led by Alex Acosta at the time, considered charging Epstein with obstruction of justice or witness tampering. According to court filings, Reed Weingarten, who's now representing Epstein in Thursday's filing, said it's a hypothetical idea. Prosecutors debated with Epstein's previous counsel, and prosecutors ultimately did not believe there was factual support for the allegations of obstruction of justice and witness tampering. But Alex Acosta described in a 2011 letter cited in the court filings and published by the Daily Beast in its entirety that there was, quote, a year-long assault on the prosecution and prosecutors. I use the word assault intentionally, as the defense in this case was more aggressive than any which I or the prosecutors in my office had ever previously encountered, he wrote. Epstein had loaded his legal team with some of the biggest names in the defense bar. He hired Alan Dershowitz and Roy Black, the attorney who exonerated William Kennedy Smith in a rape trial in Palm Beach, eventually switching to an all-star lineup including Jack Goldberger, Jay Lefkowitz, Ken Starr. That's Kirkland and Ellis. That's the whole bench there pretty much. And then Epstein's multi-pronged response to the investigation included suing the lawyer, Bradley Edwards, who was representing these girls in 2009, and accused him of running a Ponzi scheme. There was a settlement with the original lawyer, and Epstein admitted that he had filed the lawsuit in an unreasonable attempt to damage Edwards' business reputation. He also filed with the Florida bar, who found no wrongdoing.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Alan Dershowitz vehemently denies the allegations brought against him by Virginia Giuffre. He says he had no idea about the extent of the allegations against Jeffrey Epstein when he took on his case back in 2008. But he says defending controversial clients is just part of the job. Did you ever see Mr. Epstein with underage girls?
No. Oh, no. If I had ever seen Jeffrey Epstein in any inappropriate situation with an underage girl, I would have terminated my relationship and turned him in. No way.
No way. No way.
Dershowitz is a longtime friend of Epstein's who represented him in the criminal underage sex case.
Could you please? I never saw a young underage woman.
Yet Epstein's former butler swore under oath that Dershowitz was at Epstein's residences at the same time underage girls were there.
Were there young women in another part of the house giving massages when I wasn't around? I have no idea of that.
Dershowitz did say he once received a massage at Epstein's mansion, but from an adult woman.
I kept my underwear on during the massage. I don't like massages particularly.
This story is so bad and gross and vomit-inducing and all this. And so what you have here is a bunch of lawyers for Jeffrey Epstein intimidating the girls who accuse, the parents of the girls who first went to the police in 2005, driving their parents off the road, sitting in black SUVs in front of their houses. You have the legal team of Dershowitz et al. Looking at their MySpace pages, accusing them of being drug addicted, etc. They also go after the U.S. attorneys, the career prosecutors, and not only do they go after them physically with intimidation by these private investigators, these ex-law enforcement officers that they hire to intimidate the prosecutors, but they go after them in court too. They file cases, they file complaints with the Bar Association to try and damage their reputations. And Dershowitz is now doing this to David Boies. And he's sitting on the TV saying, oh, he's been accused of, ethical violations by who? By the Bar Association? By the New York Times. No, the New York Times did a profile on David Boies. It's a very long profile. It's about 22 pages. I read it this morning. And it does, say that David Boies had some distasteful clients. There's no doubt about that. But at the time that all this was going on, Alex Acosta was also, and his prosecutors at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami were also being, I don't know what you want to call it, terrorized, intimidated, whatever. And Alex Acosta literally caved. That's what happened. Acosta filed these letters saying they're going after me, they're going after my prosecutors, there's this big, witness tampering thing going on, there's this big obstruction of justice thing going on, and now they're coming after us. Now these ex-law enforcement guys are intimidating my prosecutor. And finally, Acosta caves and negotiates this federal non-prosecution agreement for Epstein, which now the court has said is illegal. The federal court judge said that whole thing was illegal. And you know what's really creepy about the agreement, and I keep on telling you this because this point is going to come up. This agreement had 4 named co-conspirators, but it also had alleged co-conspirators who were never named. And the FBI investigation that produced the 53-page indictment of Epstein was put in a drawer. It's not that he filed the case and then they came and said, okay, let's do a plea deal. No, they said, you're going to do a plea deal and you're not going to file the case. And Acosta went along with that. That is the problem. So now Alex Acosta is out. This new guy that's in, this Pizzella guy, Pizziella or whatever, Pizziella, the acting now at the Labor Department, he's all mixed up with Jack Abramoff. No, that guy's all mixed up with Jack Abramoff and sweatshops in the Mariana Islands. This is our new Secretary of Labor. I'm telling you, this whole thing, this is so amazing. You have every single body being intimidated by this whole mafia, this whole crowd of filthy, disgusting, dirty hands, just playing in the sandbox. This is unbelievable. And Alan Dershowitz, just as the state grand jury was underway, as Barry Krischer's grand jury was underway, this is before Alex Acosta became involved. This is before the police chief in Palm Beach County understood that Barry Krischer was also, going to cave for whatever reason. The grand jury that Barry Krischer, the state attorney, convened, Alan Dershowitz gave the state prosecutor, gave Krischer information to discredit the accusers. He gave Barry Krischer social media information on these girls, their MySpace pages that appeared to show some of these young girls drinking and using, pot, I guess, or drugs of some sort. That's according to a police report and court documents. And now Alan Dershowitz says to the newspaper, quote, I had absolutely no role in investigating or arranging any investigations, Dershowitz wrote in an email to CNN, because now he says, I'm an appellate lawyer. I only handle appeals. What? I'm an appellate lawyer who did only legal research and negotiation. I don't own a computer. I wouldn't even know how to access MySpace. The father of one of the accusers later told authorities that a private investigator was photographing his family and chasing visitors who came to the house. This is a police report. The police identified this investigator as a second private eye involved in the case and said he was hired by a new attorney Epstein brought into the case. Roy Black was no longer on the case at this time. 1 week later, according to a police report, that accuser was approached by the person who claimed to be in touch with Epstein and given the warning about cooperating for compensation or facing the consequences, reaping the whirlwind. The lawyer for the accusers said that Epstein's legal team also tried to get medical records about these girls. One parent called the police multiple times, alleging he was followed by somebody, and police later identified the vehicle as belonging to a third private investigator. And to this day, it's not clear who hired that private investigator, but the father stated that as he drove to and from work and running errands throughout the county, the same vehicle was behind him running other vehicles off the road in an attempt not to lose sight of the father's car. The same car, linked to a private investigator, later ran the mother of the same accuser off the road.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Yeah, so the show sounds a little naked, doesn't it? It sounds a little bare, a little sparse. Yeah, it's because one of my machines, the one that's usually right here on the desk, is broken. The hard drive, after all those years, the one with the O and the one with Believe Me and all those little sound bites and the applause and the ding. Yeah, the hard drive is wiped. It's just, and you know what's crazy? It's driving me crazy because I have another one. I have two of those. They're called instant replays. And I have two of them, and I cannot find the other one. And something tells me I might have given it away as a gesture to somebody that helped me set up the studio. So if you are that person, you have it, send it back to me because it's loaded up with all my stuff. Otherwise, I have to come out of pocket about $600 and buy a new one. And then task Scotty with loading it again with all the sound effects, which we don't know exactly what file they're in. Yeah. So every time I come back from the commercial, I want to hear the, oh, and it's the dice thing, right? And it's just gone. But it's Friday, you bastards. So, if you're noticing it, yeah, something's missing. It sounds a little nude. And that's a better visual than Alan Dershowitz in his panties, I got to say. The other thing that happened today, Mueller, we don't know. This is why I'm not making a big damn deal about it, because I don't know yet. Mueller is supposed to testify next Wednesday. And I've always said to you, this is a stupid format that they came up with, the Democrats did. They wanted the Judiciary Committee to have 2 hours to question Robert Mueller. And then subsequently, they would have the House Intelligence Committee get 2 hours to interview Bob Mueller. And these lunatic, rabid, right-wing idiots, the Jim Jordans of the world, right? The Collins guy, the ranking member, they will eat up the whole, they will just scream and yell that, Robert Mueller, he hired Democrats and, that the whole team was, spying on, they will just eat up all the time. So it finally dawns on them that they're going to have a time issue. So Gerald Nadler, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, has decided he's going to open up the negotiations with Mueller, who only agreed to testify under a subpoena and only with a time constraint of 2 hours for Judiciary and 2 hours for the And I've always said, why don't you just combine the two committees, which they're totally allowed to do, and have two people, like the chairman and the ranking member only, receive all the questions from the members of these two committees and only have two members question Bob Mueller and keep it, tight and bright so Americans can follow the freaking testimony instead of 5 minutes on this. And then Jim Jordan will say 5 minutes on, oh, they were all plants. They were all, in the barrel for Hillary and lock her up and distracting everybody's train of thought as we collect facts, because fact management is key. Making a timeline, fact management is key to solving all crimes. So it will be, just a mind, a freaky mind thing to go from one topic to another topic to another. And that's what so now Nadler is negotiating with Mueller for more time. And in that case, the testimony will be postponed and it won't happen next Wednesday. It'll happen some other day. This is crazy because after Mueller's testimony, that's when the House was going to start getting busy. As soon as the American people were informed, were filled in on what Mueller wrote in Mueller's report by Robert Mueller telling us what was in Mueller's report, maybe even having him read portions of it, like, if we could have exonerated the president, we would so state. What does that mean, Bob Mueller, to you? What does that mean? Does that mean that otherwise you would have charged the president with crimes of, well, let's just go back to the Jeffrey Epstein story, obstruction of justice, witness tampering? What does that mean? Right? So now we don't know if Mueller's going to testify next Wednesday. The last report I saw said, as far as the Judiciary Committee is concerned, they say it's still on for next Wednesday, but they don't know. Now, I'm telling you right now, if anybody is a staffer, if anybody is a PR person, whatever, if you're around anybody on the Judiciary Committee, if you're around anybody on the Intelligence Committee in the House, you really need to get all the members to submit their questions and have two people only, the chairman and the ranking member, ask the questions and keep them to yes or no as much as you can, because otherwise you're going to have this grandstanding. You're going to have, how they do this breathless testimony, the members do. They just testify and you just sit there and you go, is there a question in our future? Is there a question for the witness? Is there a question? Why did you call him up here if all you wanted to do was filibuster, right? And of course there is no question. There's just these endless statements by guys like Louis Gohmert. Who needs that? No one needs that. We need to hear from Bob Mueller what is in that report. And then after that, the House was going to take a full vote on holding Wilbur Ross and Bill Barr in contempt. And they had issued subpoenas for about 12 witnesses mentioned in the Mueller report. And they were going to start these hearings in earnest to educate the American people on this dark, disgusting, dank world of witness intimidation, of obstruction of justice. Yes, there's a method to my madness. It's not that I'm obsessed with, pedophile Jeffrey Epstein or all the pedophiles that are around Donald Trump, or the rapists that are around Donald Trump, or that Donald Trump has been accused of rape by at least 2 women, and groping and harassment and sexual assault by at least 20 women. No, it isn't that I'm obsessed with that. It's that I'm obsessed with showing you what these men do to the women, to the girls, to the accusers who have valuable things to tell you about the character, the behavior, the lack of integrity, the lack of dignity, the lack of decency that all these mafioso types who run this country currently have. I mean, that's the whole point of telling. Now, yesterday, he had like this Star Wars bar scene of cretins up to the White House for this stupid social media summit that he had yesterday. It was the sickest, most twisted thing that ended up almost in a bar fight in the freaking Rose Garden in the White House. This is the White House. Now, I tweeted this out last night and somebody replied to me. It was very funny. And she said, it's not the White House. It's the white trash house. This is Sebastian Gorka picking a fight with the Playboy reporter, threatening to beat him up.
Threatening me in the Rose Garden. You are a punk. You know the journalist, you're a punk.
You're a punk.
Dr. Gorka, go home.
You should not be attacking journalists like this.
For the record, he'd kick your punk ass.
Oh my God.
There's the Secret Service.
Be real journalists. Those are protecting journalists.
Look at this.
Thank you. But fake news is over. Yes, it's freedom.
Does yelling at reporters mean freedom?
Does yelling at reporters mean freedom? This is the white trash house. This is like a Star Wars bar scene. These are the people that were sitting in the Rose Garden yesterday. The Rose Garden, where Bill Barr flanked and Wilbur Ross flanked the president just in case the president told the truth or something and he needed help lying. Look at these people in the freaking Rose Garden. This is so bizarre.
Don't be sad. Don't be sad.
No, I'm just standing around. This is a group of people that are eager for demonic possession.
Demonic possession. And you're a journalist, right?
That's right. Hey, a journalist. Come over here and talk to me, brother. We can go outside and have a long conversation.
You're threatening me now in the White House. In the Rose Garden. You're threatening me in the Rose Garden.
Get him.
You are a punk. You're not a journalist. You're a punk.
Go home. You're a journalist. Go home. Hey, Gorka, get a job.
Hey, just for the record, he'd kick your punk ass.
What is this, administration? What is this? This is lowlives. These are lowlives. Joy Villa wearing her stupid, costume outfit to the Rose Garden. The lack of respect. It's just so... For a social media summit where he told these miscreants who lie for a living on Facebook, Twitter, and put up these Breitbart websites and Prison Planet now... He actually told these people, you communicate with our citizens without going through the fake news filter. The crap you think of is unbelievable. He's praising them for lying to the American people and filling their heads with the idea that Hillary Clinton is the pedophile. She's the one that's running, human trafficking rings out of a pizza parlor. This is off the hook. This is just seriously grotesque. Good luck, New Orleans.